Okay, Sharazel, however you pronounce it. I'm gonna, I guess, go through your movie and just try to talk point by point what you say. So here we go. Let's get to the second point you had.
Secondly, I never said anything about tax benefits.
Yeah, I know that. I was just kind of paraphrasing. I didn't really understand what you had against marriage imposed on the businesses. I don't know what that actually means. So maybe you should explain a little bit as what marriage does to a business that's so bad. What a marriage, how marriages are imposed on businesses. Or let's keep going here.
I don't think that there should be tax benefits for married people in
I
any
assume
case,
so.
but that's because I don't think that there should be taxes. All right, I'm an anarchist.
Yeah. Oh, so explain what you expect to achieve with anarchism. If anarchism ruled the world, what do you think would happen? I know people are afraid. You probably say it's not going to deteriorate into destruction and everything. I don't. Not only do I not think that, I think that anarchy would just lead to a government, no matter what, because people just always have to form some type of society, and societies need governments, and just you can't force anarchy. For anarchy may be the zero state, but it always societies are always going to move towards some type of governance. Um, so it's kind of an ideal that's impossible to achieve. So I say you're more of a libertarian because you believe in all those freedoms, but you want you don't want a government, but you can't have it that way. It would be impossible logically. Okay, moving on. Here's more of his.
Um, Point two is your argument that that's not the way things are. Now, I have no.
Okay, very condescending, but my point is not. My point is that ought does not imply can. You know, like I'm not saying that that's not the way things are because we should change it or something. I'm saying that's not the way things are because that's just not. That's just the only logical way. You need something to enforce contracts. Um, you could say that people can enforce their own contracts, but would that work in practice? Because people would just like not go on, not honor their contracts. Um, I don't know. You'd say like, well, let's just move on and hear what you have to say.
No personal animosity towards you. So I'm going to mock you, but it's not. I, it's not because I don't like you or anything. I don't know you.
Feelings mutual.
You said that's not the way things work. Why don't you go live in a cave? Well, guess what else ain't the way things work? For one thing, gay people aren't allowed to get married in California. That's the way things are.
The way things are, but that's not what I said. I said the way things work. So I'm not saying that you can't change that law. That's not something that's set in stone. That's not something that's a logical necessity. Things like contract enforcement is a logical necessity. Things like government is a logical necessity. Like I said, anarchy only leads to government because you can't stay in an anarchy state forever.
Why don't you go live in a cave where you can get married? Our
I know I was being condescending, but seriously, I mean, it was just because your argument just sounded so ridiculous.
tax dollars are stolen from us to go fund hegemonic, murderous, barbarous wars off in
We could change that. That's not a logical law.
foreign lands, engendering hatred and slaughtering innocents. Is that the way? That's the way things are. Is that the way things should be?
Exactly.
Do not make the mistake of saying that the way that just because something is that it's an ought.
I never did. That's not what I said.
Governments are not required to recognize contracts between people. People can privately enforce their contracts against one another.
And how do you enforce it? You bring them to court. You know, those government buildings.
They can use arbitration services and things like that.
What the hell's an arbitration service? You're talking about some like non-biased third party. Well, that's what government does in those cases, in court, civil cases.
There's other ways. The government is not the sole arbiter of contracts.
No, but if you're going to give someone the power, they're technically a government anyway, aren't they?
And heck, even if you didn't have an enforcement apparatus, if a person violated a contract, who would make a contract with them again?
That's just assuming something, because you're assuming that everyone knows everything about everyone's business in their entire business history. It doesn't work that way. And when I say it doesn't work that way, I mean it physically doesn't work that way. People don't know everything. And unless you figure out a way to get knowledge to everybody, it just won't work. Okay? People can lie. People can cheat. It happens.
All right? And besides, if a person breaks a contract, then you stop giving them whatever, the point is, contracts are enforceable without some kind of centralized, compulsory body of force, such as a state, to do it.
Such contention.
And lastly, and this is the really important one, you are arguing for a fundamental right to marry, but the fundamental right to marry doesn't exist in a vacuum. And it isn't just a right in and of itself.
Yes, so?
The freedom to associate is also a fundamental right. So by arguing that one fundamental right can violate another fundamental right is inconsistent.
Okay, again, this is my problem with your argument. You're arguing for Proposition 8 based on this bigger argument against marriage and contracts and things like that. But you got to stick to the point here. If you're gonna fight that stuff, it has nothing to do with Prop 8. Prop 8 is a discriminatory law. It's saying that marriage is only between a man and a woman. So they're infringing on people's rights to have these contracts. Now you come back and say that the government doesn't have to recognize the contracts or shouldn't have to recognize the contracts. But that's a bigger argument. That completely blows. That you completely missed the point, dude, of Prop 8. You completely missed the fucking point.
You need to find a way of expressing your fundamental right to get married in a way that doesn't violate the other people's fundamental right of freedom of association.